And welcome, everyone. I'm here in Australia, and I know many of you are around the globe. So we are evening time here, but I'm definitely excited about this. And I've been thinking about leadership for quite a while. I've been part of my life for many years. So for those who don't know me, I'm going to do a little bit of an introduction just so you get a bit of a taste of how I came into this work and why I'm so passionate about it. Yeah. Okay. So if you permit me, I will turn on a little bit of a share on the slide here and share a little bit with you. So this is me in the mid 70s. And why I'm showing this particular photo is because in the mid 70s, I'm in my 50s now, I was very fortunate enough to come into Tibetan Buddhism. So very early on in my life, meditation entered 45 years ago. And this was very much a big influence of what shifted my life because I had a very, let's say, tumultuous 7 years of the first 7 years, and partly because I was in boarding school at age 5. And age 5, that was a devastating experience. So at age 7, when I ended up at this Tibetan commune, let's say, it changed my life. And I discovered mindfulness, I discovered meditation, I discovered compassion. If you've ever been around Tibetan Buddhists, you know that they're very grounded and centered in compassion work. And it was the first time I ever really had a direct experience of that kind of holding, coming out of a British boarding school, which is where I was raised. It was, it was a very scary time. And to enter this amazing place with all these Tibetan monks. They didn't even speak English, and they just took me with them, and we would walk around the pond and we would hang out together. And there were no words. There was just this, loving energy, which was very different than my boarding school. And this was the point when I knew I was home. This was the point when I knew that whatever this is, I didn't know that it was some spiritual experience. I just knew that this felt home, this felt real. Excuse me, and this is what I wanted. This is what I wanted more of. It was much safer than being in a British boarding school, which is a complete stark reality. Yeah, it's a complete difference. And so every morning, my mother said I would wake up at 6 in the morning at age 7 years old, and I would rush down and sit with the Tibetan Buddhists, and I would chant with them. And this became my ritual and my daily experience. And it, of course, transformed my life. Yeah. And this then brought me to Osho. And in the late 70s, I discovered Osho, and this photo is in the mid 80s, though. And here, I think I'm 13 years old. And it was it was an important moment of my life when I discovered Osho. He was a rebellious spirit. He was talking about, a radical way of being and waking up and accepting and embracing our humanness, unlike anything I'd experienced before. Yeah. So he took it in a way to a whole nother level of what human behavior and, that it's okay to be who we are and to expand and explore and experience. And that was a massive influence for me because meditation is the backdrop of all of his work. And sadly, if you end up seeing a documentary on him in Netflix, you only get sort of one aspect of the work that he was doing, which was a lot about waking up, which was a lot about awareness, was a lot about meditation. And brilliant. He was very much ahead of his time. So this was my upbringing from childhood and into teenagehood and into adulthood. Yeah, my whole upbringing in that commune. So of course, it had a very unique experience rising as a little girl into womanhood. And just to say, with the beauty of living in a commune, having that enriched experience where everyone in that community is there for consciousness, is there for, developing on themselves, is there for waking up, is there for wanting to better themselves, or let's say, be more conscientious and mindful. And to be a child and growing up in that environment was very powerful, very impactful, and very contactful for me as well, because I used to love to hug, and I was in the right place, because boarding school, hugging was not okay. But when I was in a commune, whether it was a Tibetan commune or in this particular commune, I was able to hug, and I loved being held. I loved having people there saying, "Hey, I see you," and that's what I needed as a child. That's what I missed in the boarding school. So needless to say, I ended up doing a lot of work on myself growing up in this environment, looking at my stuff. And, you can't help but do this kind of stuff when you're in a commune like that. You have to look at your part. You have to be willing to see your own stuff. And what I also love about Osho's work is not just about the light, yeah, it's also owning your shadow. It's also looking at the fact that we have both sides within us, yeah, our humanness. So a lot of that work I had to apply to myself for many, many years. And it's a continued journey, as I always say at the end of a workshop or a training. This being human is a continued journey. I don't know if there's any time that we just arrive and that's it, done. Probably maybe someone can speak to that, but from my own experience, and also being in the environment of working with so many different people. So these photos here, by the way, is I've been on the road. I've been on the road for 20 years. And I've been in, I don't know how many workshops in those 20 years. And I've been also doing workshops in the last 10 years, probably directly, indirectly working with about approximately 10,000, averaging about 500 a year. And it has been a wonderful experience, from Brazil to South Africa to Sweden, to Australia, to all over the world, to the richness of different cultures and, different people, and how we are in our, being human. It has been an amazing, remarkable journey. And this led me to wanting to explore how I can give back in different ways. One way, of course, is I started doing this work in personal development. So I have different personal development workshops where I support people in, finding their essence, or support people into coming into their self-worth, support people into feeling relaxation. Support people to coming into a place of, I have what it takes, or I am enough. Notice I say support people, because I don't come from a framework of, I know how to do this and, I'm going to tell you how to do it. Rather, I work with what's alive in people, where they feel blocked, and to support them into, finding ways to transform that. Yeah. So this was a place where the work that I do is very deep. Definitely, it's going to be deep. I want to go into, deep issues, deep topics. And I love that profound environment. I love that environment where it gets, we go into the mud and we are able to really look at our real, raw place, not the superficial place, yeah, everything's okay. Yeah, all good. I love going into deep core issues. And what really, how did I set up my life to where it is now? Yeah, if I was really gonna take some responsibility. When people are willing to judging another, putting it out on, the politicians, and making other people wrong. Yeah. I like it when there's this place when we're really willing to open up. And of course, where does this lead? It leads to the heart. When I'm really willing to open up and show myself, when I'm willing to dare to show myself. So my work naturally started to take this course where, with the deeper, the thicker the mud, the more beautiful the lotus flower, as the Tibetan Buddhists say. And it's, a place where I saw real transformation start to happen. When we start to go deep, when we start to be willing to go deep and to show ourselves and to be honest. So this is what led me slowly into wanting to bring that heart-centered leadership into the trainings that I do, because it felt inauthentic not to do that. just to say a little bit, I've been in different places and I've had the opportunity to go different countries now and to lead. So not just doing workshops and, personal development, self-growth workshops, but also really to lead. And this is the area where I start to get very excited. Also had a privilege and an honor to work with different people who are very influential in the field and who are also in their own right very conscientious. Yeah, they all have their own way of contributing to that, of course. Yeah. And the guy in the middle, which some of you probably know, Tony Robbins, he's a crazy guy, by the way. He's as you probably already know. And I used to feel like his energy was just so unmatchable. Like when I'd be around him, it was just like, it was so big, and he's just, he's not everybody's cup of tea, clearly. But one day I got this email from his partner and she said, can you come to Fiji? Tony would really love for you to lead him in something. And I did. I flew there for 12 days and I led him in something. And I don't want to go into that, but out of, confidentiality for him. And it was amazing because, what I love and appreciate, anyone who's in a leadership role, if they're continuing and willing to learn, even if you feel like you've reached this place in yourself where you're like, I know it all. By the way, I don't agree with that statement at all, of the I know it all statement. But even if that, to have that openness and that willingness to continue to learn, I feel is something that we all, should be willing to do. Yeah, because life is a continued opening and continued unfoldment, a continued learning. So it would be kind of boring if we reach a place where we feel we know it all. A few of my workshops that I've done, many different ones, just to say, and I'm loving the work that I'm doing. Also, I'm not abandoning the workshops. They've been a big stepping stone into doing trainings, and people who love to train now with me, I'm also bringing them into these kinds of workshops so that they can get direct hands-on experience from the work they do in the trainings. Yeah. Maybe I mentioned that a little bit later. So in essence, what I do is this Tools for Life training. Just so you know, that whole journey from being from the boarding school to the Tibetan Buddhist to, growing up with Osho, and that whole thing led me slowly down this path of, working with individuals, groups, and organizations, and eventually coming to this place where I started teaching. And this is where I feel the most sweetness and the most joy and the most passion, because I moved from into this place of being able to enable people to want to step into leading. For me, I couldn't ask for a better job, because I believe very much so we do need more leaders in the world. Very much so, and especially leaders who want to do it from a conscientious place. And when I say leading, it doesn't necessarily mean a workshop. Yeah, it can be in any aspect of your life, because leading, in essence, is standing in your power. Yeah, and I want to talk a little bit more about that. So, including your heart in leadership for me is a must. For me, that's the new leadership. If we're not doing that, then we're back in the old way. So how I work is through the body, and I did this little diagram here: the head, the heart, and the belly. Yeah? And the belly represents really the body somatically. Yeah. And another aspect I want to say right down here, and this is working with the unknown, and I just want to name it right now, and we're not going to do anything more other than me naming it, which is the unknown, the mystery. For me, that mystical part, I always would highly recommend in anything we do when we're holding others, is to keep an openness to that mystical part, because we don't always know. And we certainly don't always know what's right for the other person. So when we can keep an openness to that mystical part, to the unknown, so let's see what emerges in this space between me and the other, or between me and the group of people, or the group dynamics, yeah, and not having to have it in control, or not having to have it all worked out. So that mystical part is very important. So I want to talk a little bit about qualities of the heart center. And I start with the head. Obviously, we have the intelligence, the logic, the awareness. Yeah, we need that, obviously, focus, computation, and mindfulness. Most of us function today from that headspace, really from a headspace. And I just want to do this really quick. 1 second. I just want to say that when we go into a workshop, or when we go into a group room or boardroom, or when we go into, some of us are just delivering heads. We forget that we have this other part. Yeah, it's like, now we get to talk about everything. Because we're so much more than just this. And the old paradigm, in my opinion, is was this, I'm just delivering this, and there was a disconnect from the heart center, and there was a disconnect from the body. And you see that, and sadly, you still see that today. And for me, when we're standing in anything that we do, whether we're leading or not, to include all three centers, they all have their three intelligence. Yeah, even when you're making love, they all have their place in anything that we do, whether it's creative or logical, that we include all aspects of ourselves. Yeah? Embodiment. So I want to say that because often I feel like when I meet people, that we're very head oriented. We support this, we educate this, academically. When a kid grows up, we're supporting this. Sadly, and I think, we could, do with a little bit more of supporting this and the body. And I want to talk a little bit about that in the next slide. But there's a big thing that we miss in our, education system. Of course, no surprise there. So the next one I put here is the heart. And the heart is just, of course, finally now in the last 10 years, we're slowly opening up. We're seeing that more and more today, Of course, this has been a step-by-step process, but compassion is a big one. If we can lead and support others with compassion, listening, patience, I don't know who here is good at patience, but that's a big one. Patience is a really reachable, that we can feel that when we place we're holding people, that people can feel you're reachable. One of my favorite things is that people can come up to me at any point and say, hey, Rupes, I want to talk with you about something. Or hey, Rupda, I'm struggling with this, that I'm always reachable. I'm always accessible. That I'm not in any particular position. I'm here, I'm available. Yeah. Honesty, that we can be honest and transparent. That is becoming more and more. Now we're seeing that, thankfully, but that's all heart-centered leading. Yeah, that's all connected with our hearts, and being vulnerable, which again, finally, we are slowly starting to see that vulnerability is actually not weakness, it's courageous. It really is a quality that we can exemplify and also feel safe to be vulnerable. Can I really be vulnerable? Can I really show myself? And by the way, if I'm with people where I feel I can't really show myself with, then I question that, not necessarily them, but I question myself. Why can't I feel safe to be vulnerable? Just to look at that, our humanness. I have this workshop called Self-Worthy. And in the Self-Worthy workshop, one of the first things I write on the board is permission to fuck up. Because we have so many people who are perfectionists and, so many people have to get it right. So many people don't want to fail and so on. Yeah. Permission to fuck up, permission to make mistakes, permission to be human. And I think, as in any form of leadership that you do, that we acknowledge our humanness. We'll give people permission to do the same. It's very important. Yeah. And of course, respectfulness. That's a very beautiful quality, and sensitivity. And by the way, sensitivity, in my opinion, is not being this, wimpy thing. Sensitivity is, hey, I can pick up something here happening with you. Would you like to talk about it? Sensitivity is like, oh, I'm sensing something is going on. Would you like to discuss it? Yeah. Just to be clear, that's what we're talking about. Yeah. A heart-centered leading. Okay. So the other one I want to say before we step out is the belly, the gut feeling, the intuition. Absolutely big one. Yeah, a lot of us have lost connection with our intuition because we've gotten stuck in our bloody heads. You know, we got overthinking. Should I do that? Shouldn't I do that? What if they did? And we get so stressed out here that we lose somehow listening to our own inner, you know, intuition or inner guidance or GPS, whatever you want to call it, but tuning into that and going, oh yeah, this feels right. This feels naturally right. And there's no doubt there. It's just, you know, you can say it's trust, or you can say it's relaxation, because I feel it, my gut feeling. You know, and presence, by the way, is such a big one in anything that we do, and including with our leading. Because presence is, hey, I'm here. I'm here with you right now. And that's so important, because how many of us, and I just want to pop out and just to say this, how many of us have sat in conversations, you know, and felt somebody wasn't present with us? Or how many of you watching right now, for example, grew up in an environment where you felt like one or two people who raised you were not really present with you? And that lack of presence, what that then created, yeah, it creates all sorts of negative beliefs. When we're not seen and acknowledged, or somebody's present with us, we start to believe we're not worthy, we're not good enough. So presence is such a big thing, big one. And then take it to another step. When somebody is crying in front of you, or when somebody is, you know, uncomfortable, can you be in the discomfort of that? For example, especially if you're in a leading role, you know, if you're holding or supporting another, how you hold presence in yourself for another. And that's also important. Do you get unstable? Do you want to run? Yeah. What happens to you? So that relationship that you have with presence and how much you're able to hold presence is a big one, because people can feel when you're present. Immediately, we feel it immediately when somebody's lost presence. You know, they pick up their phone, or they slightly one look down at the phone, and we feel, they're not with me really, I must not matter, and all sorts of internal narratives start to set off in your head. Yeah, so presence is a big one, especially for yourself. Yeah, dancing in and out of this slide here. And we continue with the, you know, body center. Of course, we have power, and power is, you know, comes from the belly. There's a lot of work that the samurais would do with power, and it's very belly centered. You know, you can come to a samurai and they can really hold their place, yeah, because they're really grounded and centered in their belly. And power is an interesting thing, because depending on what was modeled to you growing up as a child, you can have a positive or negative experience with what power means to you. You know, because we've seen a lot of distortions of what power can do, you know, sadly, in the world today. So there are some people who don't dare to step into their power and claim their power, and even to say, I have a right to be here, is a certain level of claiming your space and claiming your power. And for some people, just to say that is a big deal. You know, I have a right to be here. It's my birthright. You know, power also is, and when I talk about power, I'm talking about really clean power, not power over somebody, you know, empowered inside yourself, yeah, where you can really hold yourself, where you have a right to use your voice, where you give yourself that right. You're not waiting for somebody else to give you that right. That's very important. Power also is connected to boundaries, because if I claim my power, I can claim my space. And if we don't work in a healthy way with boundaries, we will let other people walk over our boundaries. You know, we don't respect them, they won't. Yeah. And then what happens? We end up resenting them. We end up being angry at them and angry at ourselves that we let somebody step over our boundaries. Power gives us permission to say no. And by the way, we live in a culture where saying no is not easy, and yet it's a necessity. We all need to sometimes say no. No, it's too much right now. No, I'm overwhelmed right now. No, I need some time out. No, thank you. So power is such a big key, and it's one of those things people don't dare to claim for all the reasons that they have. Yeah, of course, because we have many different distortions of power. Maybe somebody overpowered you as a child, can be verbally, can be psychologically, can be physically. Yeah, we've had all sorts of abuse with misuse of power. And yet it is such a beautiful quality when we talk about the pure essence of power. Yeah, really just the empowered place where I say, wow, I give myself the right to be here. It's like I couldn't do this work right now with you, that where I'm sitting right now and talk with you, if I didn't give that to myself. Yeah, otherwise I'd be slightly collapsed. Oh, I'm not really, I don't worth to be here. I would have all sorts of internal dialogue. Oh, do they really want to listen to what I have to say? You know, I would be listening to a whole nother internal narrative, but there's this other part that says, no, it's okay to be here. It's okay to be here. I give myself permission to be here. Yeah? And it can be so empowering that you can actually start to feel connected to your heart through it. Ah, nice. It creates an inner relaxation. And maybe even some kind of sense or connection to the internal, I am enough. Yeah. Something beautiful comes out of power. So if you would to take a few keys away from this, I would hope that you could get that one. And you can practice playing with power just in little things in your daily life. And just, where do I not dare to say no, where I would like to say no, for example. You know, or where would I like to set a boundary for myself? Mm-hmm. Where would I like to speak up and use my voice? Mm-hmm. So there's many different areas where we can play with that. You know, one of the things a woman once said to me is, I make love with my partner, and sometimes I don't want to make love. So when I say no, it doesn't mean that I don't love them. You know, and I say, yeah, that's true. Yeah. So we have, again, we've linked things that with no means this. Actually, no means that when you honor your no, you're honoring self-respect. Yeah. I respect this. I'm honoring this. That's important. Yeah. And the more we honor this, the more empowered we feel. And again, it's not over somebody. Yeah. It's empowered. So I might have talked a bit about that more than I intended, but it's an important piece. And I want you guys to get it. And look, if anyone's watching that is thinking about taking this heart-centered leadership into a work environment, and you happen to have a work environment that is, let's say, male essence dominated. Yeah, so because sometimes women have bigger balls than men, and they turn into to men, the masculine, you know, and they abandon their feminine. You know, so sometimes women can be as scary. You know, so having your power is important in that environment, because you need to be able to say what's too much. You need to be able to honor your boundaries. Yeah. And that's what power can give you. So I'm going to move on, otherwise we might miss a little here. So everything that I just shared, that we talked about, all these beautiful qualities that we want to have for others as well, listening, compassion, patience, and so on, we need to include ourselves in it. So you are in that circle of qualities, definitely. So as much as we are patient with another, we need to be willing to be patient with ourselves. And that's a big one. By the way, probably most of you watching right now are impatient with yourself in one way or another, and you're hard on yourself in one way or another. So those qualities apply to us. They have to, you know, otherwise it's not congruent. Yeah. Same when it comes to compassion. Yeah. I often say in one of my workshops, compassion, you know, is not compassion if it does not include yourself. You know, so you really need to include yourself. Self-compassion is so important. So yeah, I think you guys know what that means. It means, by the way, just to say one thing to that, permission to make mistakes, or as I would say, permission to fuck up. Yeah, just, you know, which is a big one. Permission to make mistakes. Self-compassion comes in. It's the greatest gift of all, because you can fall down again and again, and it's okay. It's okay if I fuck up. It's okay if I make a mistake. I'm okay. That's the signal you're giving yourself back. Okay, I fell down. I get back up. And so when I catch myself, and by the way, in one of my workshops, I have this whole lingo of how you catch yourself and how you catch that inner super ego. And I think some of you know what I mean when I say ego, because you've done some work here. I can see some faces, yeah? And I give it a name. I give that ego a name because it runs our life from the back seat, that part. You can call it ego, the inner judge, or the inner critic. Rupda, you need to be more, do more. And I know all of you know this internal dialogue. And I called this name Bruno. I meant to say Brutus, but it just came out Bruno and it stuck what to do. So I gave this name Bruno, and now I bring awareness to this mofo because it tries to run my life. It tries to tell me that I need to do more and be more. And when I catch it, I can slow it down. When I catch it, I bring awareness to it and I don't let it run my life. When I catch it, it has less charge on me. And then I give myself permission to make mistakes. And when self-compassion comes in, this thing's not overwhelming me, saying, oh, you fucked up, you're a loser, you're this, you're that. And actually this voice, very connected to the heart, says, it's okay. You learned, it's okay. Rupda, get back up, it's okay. So important we can get that. And I learned that from the Tibetan Buddhists 45 years ago, and it still to this day guides me and supports me. Yeah. I jump back on really quick. How am I doing on time? I think I'm okay. I'm impressed, I have to say, because I'm in my 50s here and I'm getting better at being technically savvy. I'm so happy about this. Okay. So heart-centered leadership is about you being connected to your true self and being loyal to that. That's it in essence. Being loyal to that, to yourself, to your true essence, and not abandoning yourself to wanting to make it right for someone else, which, by the way, most of us do. Most of us abandon parts of ourselves to want to make it right for another. And then in the end, what happens? Yeah, we get pissed off when they don't see us or recognize, do you know what I just did for you? And you didn't even see me in that, and so on. And the whole story gets built up in our heads. Why? Because we abandoned ourselves, or we were disloyal to what is true to us, to honoring what is okay or not okay. So that's an important step that we all need to take within ourselves. Yeah. And we can be loyal to ourselves, then that changes the quality of how we relate, not only with ourselves but also with others. So barriers of belief. What are some of the barriers we face around leading? Yeah, fear of failure, as I said. Yeah, not getting it right, so we don't even dare to try. So many people have that. It's amazing. Fear of stepping into our power. We talked about that. If I really dare to step in my power, yeah, then what? Maybe will people not like me anymore? Fear of not being good enough. That's probably, I told you I've been in contact directly and indirectly with at least over 10,000 people just through my workshops, and a lot more than that over the last 45 years. And almost every single person has the core fear of not being good enough, or just believing they're not good enough. Yeah, that's just, big thing that we all have. Fear of what other people might think. Yeah, that's a big one. FOMO, it's a big one. And now we have an acronym for it. And most people have experienced that one way or another. So, if I really step into my leading, what will other people think? That was a big step for me, by the way, because many years ago when I made this decision myself, I was worried if other people would think I was crazy. And I don't want to go too much into that, but that was part of it, part of what held me back. And of course, comparing ourselves to other one, that's a big, big one. It's a killer when we compare ourselves to other. Oh, they're an amazing leader. I'll never be like that. Or they're an amazing woman. Or they're an amazing man. I'll never be. Fuck it, is what I say. We have one life to live. We don't know when we're going to die. We could leave this planet at any time. Our last breath, do you think we're going to be worried about what other people think? No. If anything, we're going to have wanted to have lived our life to the fullest. to give ourselves permission to live it to the fullest. Yeah, following our heart, following our joy. Yeah. And shame, yeah, well, shame's a big one. Yeah, fear of being too much, that's a big one. If I really step into my energy, will people be able to, that's, we have all sorts of, again, notions and beliefs that hold us back, but these are just, you know, things that we've created, and concepts and beliefs that we've, are just barriers. And it's just an inner decision to say, I'm ready for this. I'm ready to step out of the box. I'm ready to come out of my comfort zone. I'm ready to, take a risk. I'm ready to believe in myself. And that's where, for me, that's when things start to get exciting. And just want to say in short here, when you want to, when you look at leading, it benefits all environments, whether you're a team player, manager, or boss, but also your home environment, being a partner or a parent, or as an individual in the community, or creatively. Yeah, leading, how we self-lead is as important as how we lead others. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's really about stepping in our energy, stepping in our power, giving ourselves right to be who we are. Yeah? Why do I love this work? I love seeing people come into, blossoming into their energy. That's it. I'm passionate about it. And one of the key things for me is around contributing, enabling, empowering. And because I grew up in a commune, a big one is inclusion, belonging, and community. So those are really big keys for me, of course, and they are a common thread throughout everything I do. And I think the world can use more inclusion, inclusivity, because in essence, we all want to belong. And just to say in short, these two programs in particular, I do this new business vision with some women in business, and I also do this deep dive, which is a 4-day intensive program. It's a workshop. And I train a team in both instances, in both cases. And each one of those people who are with me, who want to train to be in this work, and I'll talk a bit about that because that's what I also do. Everybody has to be willing to look at their stuff. Everybody has to be willing to face their own shadow. Everybody has to be willing to face their own sadness, their own anger, their own depression. Everybody has to be willing to do their inner homework. For me, that is authentic leading in whatever context that you decide to lead in. We have to be willing to face ourselves. Otherwise, how can I hold you in what you're facing? Yeah, that for me is, people feel it. Yeah. So for a moment, just to let your eyes closed. Yeah. And if you could sit in a position that supports presence. And just to let your eyes close and notice the weight of your body resting on either the chair or the pillow or the sofa beneath you. That in this moment you are supported. And if you want, you can take a breath. And breathing helps bring us into presence. And you can even say a sentence inside yourself, I am here. Mm-hmm. Just acknowledging and bringing yourself here. I am here. And I want you to imagine exactly where you're sitting with your eyes still closed. Imagine somebody that you love, whether they're alive today or not, is standing in front of you or sitting next to you, and just feel their presence here. Someone you love dearly. And maybe they put a hand on your shoulder just to show you their love. And see if you can receive that, receive their presence. And if there was one sentence that they would want to say to you, an expression of love or appreciation, what would they say to you? It can be as simple as, I love you, or I see you. See if you can sense your heart, and just that place in your heart of gratitude of this person in your life. They represent something to you. And from your heart, just one sentence to them, even if it's just, thank you. And in your mind's eye, just see yourself bowing down, namasteing them, and them namasteing you, both saying thank you. Yeah, and when you're ready, you can slowly open your eyes and we come back. I love to do guided meditation work because, you know, it takes the educational into experiential, and then we can move more into that embodiment. You know? And usually I'm doing it for about 15-20 minutes. We can go on a beautiful journey together, and I find it to be where doors start to open inside and things start to relax and melt and expand and let go, and you know, all of this stuff, this busyness starts to soften, yeah, and this starts to kind of open. That's the beauty of when we start to bring meditation into the work. If you're interested in knowing more about this training, it's happening online, and it starts in March. We'd love to have anyone who wants to step into this kind of work, supporting others. And yeah, I'm just passionate about watching people come into their power and realizing that they have what it takes. You know, that's an important self-recognition, that I have what it takes. You know?